They said the blood moon would bring peace. They lied, because peace never comes bathed in red. It comes in screams, in blood, and in vows that damn the soul. When the first howl echoed across the crimson sky, the war between vampires and werewolves wasn't ending. It was being reborn in the name of marriage. The kingdom of Lunaris glowed under the blood moon's shadow, its forests trembling with ancient power, its castle drowned in silence. Tonight, the werewolf princess would marry the vampire prince. Every creature from claw to fang held its breath. Lyra stood before the mirror in her moonstone gown, a masterpiece of silver silk and hidden armor. Her reflection looked like royalty, but her eyes told the truth. This wasn't love. This was surrender. "Smile," her handmaiden whispered, trembling. "You're about to end centuries of war." Lyra's lips curved, but her voice cut cold. Wars don't end with kisses. They end with blood. Beyond the walls, the vampires waited in silence. Their procession glided into the great hall like shadows, pale, perfect, and predatory. At their head walked Damien, the vampire prince, draped in black and crimson silk. His face was unreadable, carved with ancient pride and something deeper, something almost human. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. The blood moon pulsed above them, painting her silver hair with red fire. She felt it, a pull, a strange hum under her skin. His gaze wasn't cold, it was conflicted, and in that conflict, she saw danger. The ceremony began. The hall trembled under the old magic of the pact. Elders from both clans stood at opposite sides, wolves growling under their breath, vampires still as statues. The high priest raised the ancient dagger, its blade forged from both silver and obsidian, the symbols of two races that could never truly blend. He turned first to Lyra. "Princess of the Moonborn, do you vow to bind your blood to the night so your kind may live?" Lyra's hands clenched. Her voice didn't shake. "I vow, for my people." Then to Damien. "Prince of the Eternal Court, do you vow to share your power with the blood of your enemy?" A flicker of hesitation passed through Damien's crimson eyes. Then, a quiet, dangerous smile. "I vow, for the end of death." The priest sliced both their palms, letting blood drip into the chalice of unity. The liquid hissed, silver smoke twisting into the shape of a serpent. As they drank, the curse was sealed. Lyra gasped, pain igniting through her veins like fire and frost combined. Her body convulsed, caught between two worlds. Damien caught her before she fell, his voice low, almost tender. "Breathe, princess. It only hurts the first time." His tone was calm, but his eyes betrayed him. For the briefest second she saw guilt, deep, ancient, and buried beneath centuries of duty. When Lyra woke, the moonlight had faded. She was in a chamber draped in red and black silk. His chamber. The air smelled faintly of rain and blood. Damien stood by the window, staring at the dawn. She rose, unsteady. "You cursed me," she said quietly. He turned, his face unreadable. "No. I saved you from what your kind planned to do after this ceremony." Her heart pounded. "And what would that be?" "Assassination," he said simply. "Your council sent spies into my court, but I caught them first." Lyra's breath froze, her world tilted. Everything she thought she knew twisted into something far darker. "You're lying." Damien stepped closer, his voice a dangerous whisper. "Am I? Or did you truly believe peace could be bought with your blood?" The silence between them burned. For the first time, Lyra saw not just a monster, but a man haunted by his own kind. The predator's calm, the loneliness behind his strength. It all drew her in like a curse she couldn't resist. "Tell me," she asked, voice trembling, "why did you agree to this?" Damien's crimson eyes softened. "Because I wanted to see if a werewolf's heart could beat for a vampire." Her breath caught, and somewhere, deep inside, the bond sealed by blood began to throb with something far more dangerous than magic. Outside, the blood moon faded into dawn, But the curse had already awakened. Lyra's reflection shimmered, her eyes flickering red for a heartbeat. She touched her chest, feeling something new move beneath her skin. Not pain, not fear, but hunger. The war was over. But something far worse had just begun. If you're drawn into Lyra and Damien's dangerous love story, don't forget to subscribe, because under the next blood moon, one vow will be broken and one heart will be claimed. The castle slept under a blood-stained dawn. Somewhere beyond the thick curtains, the world was quiet. But inside Lyra's chest, chaos reigned. The memory of Damien's words haunted her. I wanted to see if a werewolf's heart could beat for a vampire. She wished she could forget it. Instead, it echoed through her like a curse. Lyra sat on the balcony of her new chambers, watching the mist curl through the valley below. Every part of the vampire citadel was beautiful in a way that unsettled her, serene, perfect, and cold. The roses never wilted, the fountains never ran dry, but nothing here felt alive. She could sense eyes on her, always watching, always judging. Behind her the heavy door creaked. Damien entered, silent as moonlight. "You haven't eaten," he said. Lyra didn't turn. "I don't eat dead things." His lips curved faintly. "Everything here is dead, princess, including me." She finally faced him. "Then I suppose I'll starve." The tension between them was sharp enough to draw blood. He stepped closer, slow and deliberate, the air thickening with power. "You're stronger than I expected. Most break sooner." Lyra met his gaze, defiant. "I'm not most." Damien's smile faded. "No, you're not." For a heartbeat, silence. Then a knock shattered it. A guard entered, bowing deeply. "My lord, there's unrest in the lower halls. Your council demands your presence." Damien's jaw tightened. "Of course they do." He looked at Lyra, eyes darkening. "Stay here, do not wander. Some in this castle would rather see you dead than wedded." Her tone dripped with challenge. "Let them try." He paused at the door. "They already have." Hours passed. The silence pressed heavy. Lyra's instincts screamed, too still, too quiet. Her wolf stirred beneath her skin, uneasy. Then, footsteps. Too many. Too careful. She spun just as the torches flickered out. Figures in wolf-hide armor burst through the window, blades flashing with silver. Her pack. "Princess," one of them hissed, "we've come to take you home." Lyra's heart pounded. "Home?" she whispered. "After you sold me to a vampire." The lead assassin, a scarred beta she recognized from her father's guard, snarled, "We didn't send you to join him. We sent you to end him." Realization struck like lightning. They hadn't just betrayed her. They were using her as bait. "I won't kill him," she said, stepping back. The beta's eyes went cold. "Then you'll die with him." The fight was brutal and fast. Claws met steel, the sound of tearing silk and shattered glass echoing through the chamber. Lyra fought like wildfire, graceful, furious, unstoppable. But there were too many. Just as one blade sliced toward her throat, Damien appeared in the doorway. He moved like shadow given form, his crimson eyes blazing. In a blur he struck, tearing through the attackers with supernatural precision. The air filled with silver sparks and blood mist. When the last assassin fell, silence returned. Only their ragged breathing remained. Lyra stood trembling, her gown torn, her arm streaked with blood that wasn't all her own. Damien wiped his blade clean, his expression unreadable. "Your pack," he said quietly, "has declared war again." Lyra's voice cracked. "No, they wouldn't." He threw something at her feet, a pendant, shaped like a wolf's fang, marked with her father's seal. "They would," he said, "and they did." She stared down, her pulse roaring in her ears, betrayed by her own blood. "I don't understand," she whispered. "You don't have to," Damien said. His voice softened, but his eyes carried centuries of pain. "You only need to survive it." He turned to leave, but she caught his arm. "Wait, why save me?" His expression flickered, and for a moment the cold mask cracked. "Because I've done it before," he murmured. Lyra blinked. "Before?" He looked past her, as though seeing a ghost. "Years ago. A child lost beyond the border. A wolf cub cornered by my father's soldiers." Her breath caught. "That was you?" Damien's lips curved with faint sorrow. "You had a scar here," he said, brushing a finger lightly against the side of her neck. "I healed it before I left you in the forest." The memory flooded back, flashes of moonlight, the scent of blood, a figure with crimson eyes who had saved her from death. All this time she had called that memory a nightmare, and now he stood before her. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every sound in the castle carried the echo of the fight. Every heartbeat felt too loud. Lyra found herself wandering the halls, drawn to the faint glow of torchlight near the library. There, she found Damien, seated at a long oak table, his hands stained with ink and memory. He didn't look up when he spoke. "You should be resting." She stepped closer. "I can't rest while my world burns." He sighed. "Then learn to live in the fire." The words hung between them, soft, dangerous. Lyra moved around the table, her eyes searching his. "Why do you pretend not to care? You feel everything. I see it." Damien's jaw clenched. "Care makes you weak." "Then maybe weakness is what makes us human," she said quietly. For a long time he said nothing. Then softly, "I stopped being human a long time ago." Lyra reached out, her hand brushing his. "And yet, you still saved me." He met her gaze and something in him broke. Centuries of control melted in a single breath. He rose, closing the distance between them. "You don't understand what this is," he whispered. "Then show me." His lips hovered inches from hers, power and danger colliding. But just before the kiss, he turned away. "If I touch you," he said, voice raw, "I'll never let you go." The words struck deeper than any blade. Lyra stood frozen as he disappeared into the shadows, leaving only silence and the faint echo of her racing heart. When the first light of dawn touched the castle walls, Lyra stood on the balcony once more. The valley below burned with smoke. Wolf territory, under siege. She should have felt anger. She should have wanted revenge, but all she felt was confusion. Her world had split in two, duty versus desire, loyalty versus truth. And in the center of it all stood Damien, the man she was raised to hate, and the one her heart refused to stop reaching for. As the blood moon's shadow faded, Lyra whispered into the wind, "If betrayal feels like this, what will love do to me?" The wind didn't answer. But deep in the castle halls, unseen eyes watched her, plotting, waiting and smiling, because the real betrayal hadn't begun yet. Dawn bled across the valley, washing the vampire citadel in pale light. Lyra hadn't slept. The night's whispers still clung to her skin, her pack's betrayal, Damien's confession, and the storm that now brewed between their worlds. From the balcony she saw smoke rising from the distant woods. Werewolf territory. Peace had lasted less than a week. The throne hall was colder than usual. The marble floor reflected the morning light like a mirror, sharp, blinding, unforgiving. Damien stood before the vampire council, his black cloak brushing against the crimson carpet. Every elder watched him with silent accusation. At the center of the chamber, a body lay covered in a blood-stained cloth. Lyra entered quietly, her pulse steady, but her heart racing. She knew that scent. Wolf blood. An elder vampire spoke first, his voice cutting like glass. "This was found near the southern border. A werewolf scout, drained entirely. Your signature, my prince." Murmurs rippled through the room. Lyra's eyes darted to Damien. His expression didn't change, but she saw it, the flicker of restrained fury behind his calm mask. "I didn't touch him," Damien said evenly. "I haven't fed in days." The elder sneered. "And yet the marks match your fangs." Another voice rose, low and venomous. "The alliance was doomed from the start. You cannot bind blood and shadow." The hall erupted in chaos. Lyra stepped forward before reason could stop her. "Enough." Every gaze turned on her. Her voice shook with controlled rage. "I was with him. He didn't do this." The silence that followed was heavy, a blade suspended mid-air. Then, slowly, the High Lord of the Council, Damien's father, leaned forward on his throne. His eyes were ancient and unreadable. "Careful, Princess," he murmured. "Defend him too loudly, and your loyalty may come into question." Damien's voice broke the stillness. "If you accuse me properly, but if I'm found innocent, remember who stood against me." The old vampire smiled thinly. "Oh, I intend to." That night, Lyra found herself pacing the abandoned corridors of the eastern wing, the part of the castle no one entered after dark. Her wolf instincts led her there. Something about the scout's death didn't add up. The wounds, the timing, the scent. Then she saw it. A trail of ash. Faint, silvery, unnatural. Vampire ash. She knelt, running her fingers through it. "Not Damien," she whispered. "Someone else fed and wanted him blamed." The sound of boots echoed behind her. "Spying on my court, Princess." She turned. Damien stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes burning like embers. "You're being framed," she said. He raised a brow. "I'm aware." "Then why aren't you fighting harder?" His voice dropped, low and weary. "Because the ones behind this aren't ordinary traitors. They're part of the council. My father's own." Lyra froze. "You think your father—" Damien shook his head. "No, but he's letting it happen." For the first time, she saw exhaustion in him, the kind that came not from sleepless nights, but from centuries of carrying too much. Lyra met his gaze. "Then we fight it together." He stared at her, expression unreadable. "If you stand with me, you'll be branded a traitor to both realms." Her reply came without hesitation. "Then I'll wear that brand with pride." Over the next nights they became ghosts, moving through hidden tunnels beneath the citadel, stealing fragments of truth from guarded rooms and forgotten vaults. They found scrolls sealed in blood, names of soldiers who never existed, records of hunts that defied history. Someone was rewriting time itself, forging false wars to keep both sides divided. Every discovery brought them closer, and more dangerous. In the flickering torchlight, Lyra watched Damien work, the way his focus narrowed, his movements precise and silent. There was power in his stillness, and beneath it, a strange kind of grace. "You're not what I expected," she said one night, her voice barely above a whisper. Damien looked up from the scrolls. "A monster?" Her lips curved faintly. "A man who pretends to be one." He said nothing, but the faintest ghost of a smile crossed his face. Outside, thunder rumbled. The air shifted. Rain began to fall, silver and cold, like shards of moonlight. They found refuge in the old watchtower as the storm broke open. Rain lashed the stone like 1,000 whispers. Lyra leaned against the wall, drenched and breathless from the climb. "Your castle leaks." Damien gave a low laugh, the first she'd ever heard from him. "You're complaining about rain while standing next to a vampire." She smirked. "I've fought worse." Lightning flashed, illuminating their faces, two enemies trapped by fate and thunder. He stepped closer, water dripping from his hair, his voice barely audible over the storm. "You shouldn't be here." "Why?" she asked softly. "Because every time I look at you," he said, "I remember what I'm supposed to destroy." Her heart pounded. "Then destroy it." He didn't move, didn't breathe. The air between them crackled, alive with hunger and hesitation. Lyra lifted her hand, brushing her fingers along his jaw. His skin was cold, but his pulse, faint and ancient, beat beneath it. "I don't fear you," she whispered. "You should." She tilted her head, eyes locked on his. "Then make me." Damien's restraint shattered. His hand caught her waist, pulling her close. The world vanished in a rush of thunder and heat. She felt his breath at her throat, cold, trembling, torn between desire and denial. "Lyra." His voice broke on her name. "Do it," she whispered. "I want to know what you are." For a heartbeat, nothing. Then his fangs brushed her skin. A whisper of danger, a promise of pain. The bite came soft, careful, reverent. Silver light burst behind her eyes as his blood mingled with hers. Not curse, not poison, but something impossibly alive. The storm outside grew louder, wilder, as if the sky itself could feel what they had done. When he pulled away, his lips were stained with crimson, and her eyes glowed faintly with red light. Lyra touched her throat, dizzy. "What did you do to me?" Damien's voice was low, hoarse. "You asked to know. Now you're part of me." She could feel it, his heartbeat echoing faintly within her own, two rhythms overlapping, impossible to separate. For hours they sat in silence, the storm easing to a soft drizzle. Lyra stared out at the valley, the rain reflecting moonlight like glass. "I should hate you," she murmured. Damien looked at her with quiet sorrow. "Then why don't you?" She turned to him, her voice trembling. "Because I think I was meant to find you." He looked away, jaw tight. "Fate doesn't care what we want. It only takes what it must." Lyra stepped closer, her hand on his chest. "Then let it take us both." Their foreheads touched, just a breath between them, before he gently pulled back. "Don't say that," he whispered. "Not when war is coming." Her heart clenched. "Then let it come." Outside, lightning split the sky once more, red and silver mingling in the heavens, just as it had within them. And far below, in the shadow of the castle, a figure watched through the rain, eyes glowing pale and merciless. A voice hissed through the storm, carrying the promise of doom. "The hybrid has awakened." The storm had passed, but its echo still lived inside Lyra's veins. Her reflection in the cracked mirror no longer looked familiar. Her eyes shimmered with twin colors, silver like the moon and crimson like fresh blood. The mark of the forbidden, the mark of what should never have been born. When she stepped into the corridor, the castle walls seemed to flinch away from her. Servants bowed too low, guards avoided her gaze. Whispers followed like shadows. The hybrid, the cursed one, the queen of ruin. Lyra's heartbeat drummed beneath her skin like thunder. She could feel Damien's presence long before she saw him. He waited in the grand hall, framed by fractured sunlight bleeding through the stained glass. "You shouldn't be out," he said softly. "They've seen." Lyra's voice wavered. "What's happening to me?" He stepped closer, his crimson eyes filled with something between awe and fear. Something old. Something both our kinds buried for centuries. Her hands trembled. "Tell me the truth." Damien hesitated, then reached into his coat, pulling out a weathered book bound in ash-black leather. "It's written in vampire scripture, the prophecy of the bloodlight." He opened the pages carefully. The words glowed faintly under her mixed gaze. "When moonlight and blood burn as one, the heart of two shall birth the undone. She will wear the eyes of dawn and dusk, and her love will shatter thrones to dust." Lyra stepped back, her voice breaking. "You mean me?" He nodded once. "And now they'll come for you." The sound of 1,000 footsteps echoed through the hall of judgment. The vampire council sat in a circle of crimson thrones, the air heavy with old power. Lyra stood at the center, unarmed, unbowed. Damien stood beside her, every inch the prince defiant of his crown. The High Lord, Damien's father, rose, his voice calm, but cutting. "You have committed the greatest blasphemy of our kind. You have tainted vampire blood with that of a beast." Lyra's jaw clenched. "I didn't choose this." The elder's gaze sharpened. "You drank from him. You bound yourself by will. The curse is complete." Damien stepped forward, his tone like steel. "Enough. She carries my mark, my bond. She is under my protection." The High Lord's expression flickered with fury. "Your protection?" He turned to the council. "Then let him share her punishment." A wave of murmurs rose, bloodthirsty, scandalized. Lyra's wolf stirred within her chest, hot and fierce. "You fear me because I'm what you can't control," she hissed. "Silence." But she didn't. The air around her trembled, a pulse of silver and red light rippling across the floor. The guards stumbled back as cracks formed in the marble beneath her feet. Damien caught her arm, steadying her. Easy. Don't let them see it. She turned to him, tears of fury burning in her eyes. Then what do I do? Let them kill me? His voice lowered, dark and resolute. No. You run. We both do. The night they fled the citadel, the blood moon returned. Damien rode at her side through the misted woods, his cloak trailing like smoke, her gown torn and streaked with mud. Behind them the forest burned, the sound of hounds, arrows, and wings in pursuit. Lyra's lungs burned. They'll follow us forever. Damien's voice cut through the wind. Then we make forever regret it. A shot of silver fire streaked past, grazing his arm. He hissed, swerving sharply as a group of riders broke through the trees, half vampire, half werewolf. Both sides, Lyra gasped. They're working together? Only when there's something they hate more than each other, Damien growled. They reached the edge of the known lands, where the trees turned black, and the air thickened with old, heavy magic. Lyra stared ahead. The cursed lands. Damien nodded grimly. Where even the dead refused to rest. A bolt of light struck behind them, too close. The ground shook, roots tearing free like serpents. Damien grabbed her wrist and leapt forward. Hold on. They crossed the border, and the world changed. The cursed lands were silent, eerily so. The trees had no leaves, only silver thorns that glittered in the faint moonlight. Every shadow seemed alive, every whisper part of something ancient and waiting. Lyra shivered. This place, it feels like it's watching. Damien's voice was low. It is. He led her through a valley of petrified roses, toward a ruined castle carved from obsidian. The air shimmered faintly, echoes of screams from centuries past. This was her throne, Damien murmured. The first vampire queen, the one who defied the gods for love. Lyra touched one of the thorned roses. Blood welled on her fingertip, and the ground trembled. The castle doors groaned open on their own. Inside, the air was colder than death. Portraits lined the hall, each showing the same woman with hollow eyes and a crown of thorns. Who was she? Lyra whispered. Damien's voice darkened. My ancestor, Queen Selene. She tried to merge the bloodlines, to end the war before it began. The gods punished her. Her heart still beats somewhere beneath these stones. Lyra felt it then, a faint rhythm underfoot, matching her own. Damien, she said, her voice barely audible, she's calling me. They descended into the catacombs, torches flickering. At the center lay a throne made of bone and vines, overgrown, wrapped in glowing crimson roots. Upon it sat a skeleton draped in royal rags, her crown of thorns still gleaming. Lyra stepped forward, drawn as if by instinct. Damien grabbed her hand. Careful. She feeds on power, on blood. But Lyra couldn't stop. Her mixed blood thrummed in response to the throne's pull. She's not feeding, Lyra whispered. She's waiting. As her hand touched the thorns, the chamber exploded in light. The walls cracked. Shadows screamed. Visions flooded her mind, flashes of centuries past. The queen standing between vampire and wolf armies, her body torn apart by both. Her last words echoing through the void. One day the bond they kill will rise again. The light dimmed. Lyra collapsed into Damien's arms, trembling. Her voice shook. She was like us. Damien's gaze softened. No, she was the first. You're the last. Lyra looked up at him, her silver crimson eyes glowing brighter than ever. Then I'll finish what she started. Damien hesitated. That means turning against everyone. My father, your pack, the world itself. She took his hand. Then we turned together. He smiled faintly, the first real smile in days. Then so be it, my queen. The thorns around the throne began to bloom, silver petals opening like stars. Power surged through the air, ancient, sacred, dangerous, Lyra's hair lifted in the current, her eyes blazing brighter than moonfire. The voice of the long-dead queen echoed through the chamber. Love born of blood will either heal the world or drown it. Damien drew her close as the ruins trembled. Whichever it is, he murmured, I'll face it beside you. Their lips met, a promise sealed in blood and destiny. Outside, the cursed lands awakened. The roses burned with crimson light, the sky split with thunder, and from the ashes of history, the legend of the Queen of Thorns began anew. The moment their lips parted, the earth beneath them shuddered. The cursed lands pulsed with awakening life, roses of blood and silver pushing through the soil, whispering voices carried on the wind like the murmurs of ghosts. But peace, even in its briefest form, never lingers long in cursed places. At dawn, the sky burned red. The first scouts found them. Damien saw the vampire banners cresting the horizon, the crimson crest of his father's army, spreading like a wound through the mist. From the west came the howl of wolves, thousands echoing in unison under the silver banner. 2 worlds, 2 armies, and at their center, 2 lovers marked by everything those worlds feared. Lyra stood on the edge of the ridge, her silver-crimson eyes reflecting both sides of the rising war. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. Damien's voice was heavy, the sound of a peace breaking. They took shelter in the ruined citadel of the Queen of Thorns, now their only sanctuary. The ancient hall trembled with the weight of history, thorns creeping along the walls like veins of old blood. Lyra walked its corridors restlessly, her bare feet silent against the stone. Every step echoed with ghosts. Her reflection flickered in the cracked mirrors, half wolf, half vampire, neither side whole. Damien entered, his armor dark and gleaming, his jaw set like carved marble. "They've surrounded the borders," he said. "By nightfall, this place will be a battlefield." Lyra turned to him sharply. "We can't fight them both." "No," he agreed. "But maybe we can show them who their real enemy is." Her eyes narrowed. "The curse," he nodded. "The same force that made them hate each other in the first place. The Queen of Thorns called it the Devourer. It feeds on blood spilled in anger. Every death makes it stronger." Lyra's pulse quickened. "Then the war isn't just suicide, it's sacrifice." Damien's gaze hardened. "Exactly. Every soldier that dies fuels the monster that wants to end both species." By dusk, the first arrow flew. A single silver-tipped shaft arched through the sky, cutting across the blood moon as it rose. Then the world erupted. The forest caught fire. The ground shook with the march of thousands. Wolves charged through the trees, claws tearing the earth. Vampires descended from the cliffs like red lightning, their blades flashing in the moonlight. The valley became an inferno of screams, fur, and blood. From atop the citadel, Lyra watched the madness unfold, her heart tearing in two, her people below, his people above, each side fighting for the same lie. Damien joined her, his face grim. "If we don't stop this, by dawn, the Devourer will rise." "How?" Lyra asked, voice trembling. "How do you stop a curse born from hate?" Damien turned to her, eyes fierce, unwavering. "With love, the one thing it can't consume." But before she could speak, a tremor ripped through the ground. The air darkened. The blood moon pulsed brighter, blood dripping like rain from the sky. And from the heart of the battlefield, a shadow rose, vast and formless, crawling on limbs of smoke and fire. It towered above both armies, its body woven from the souls of the dead. Faces screamed inside its chest, wolf and vampire alike, all fused in agony. Every step it took crushed soldiers beneath its shadow. Its voice was 1,000 whispers at once. "More blood. Feed me more blood." The fighting stopped. Both sides froze. Even hatred paled before that sound. Lyra's breath caught. "It's real." Damien drew his blade, its silver edge blazing red. "And it's feeding on them." She looked at him, desperation in her voice. "If one of us dies before the next blood moon, the curse ends. That's what the prophecy said." He met her gaze steadily. "Then it's me." Lyra's eyes widened. "Don't you dare. If I die, The vampire bloodline ends. The curse dies with me. And if you die, she said, voice breaking, I lose the only thing that ever made this war worth surviving. He stepped closer, brushing his fingers across her cheek. Then you'll live. And that's enough. She grabbed his hand, trembling. No, we do this together, or not at all. They descended the burning hill together, hand in hand, toward the devourer. Every step closer, the ground bled light. Wolves and vampires alike watched, unsure whether to bow or flee. Lyra raised her hand, her mixed blood pulsing in her veins. The air shimmered with silver and crimson light. The devourer's shadow turned its hollow gaze upon them. Children of the curse, it hissed, you cannot end what you were born from. Lyra's voice rose, steady and fierce. Then you've never seen what love was born from. She clasped Damien's hand. Their blood mingled, red and silver becoming one. A shockwave erupted, throwing soldiers to their knees. Their joined power flared like a star, pure, burning, and alive. The devourer roared, its body unraveling into smoke. But with every blow, it fed on more blood around them. Damien faltered, his strength draining fast. Lyra saw it, the choice written in his eyes. He meant to give himself to stop it. No, she cried, clutching his face. You promised me forever. He smiled faintly. Then make forever mean something. As the shadow lunged, Damien stepped between it and Lyra. His blade plunged deep into its chest, but the darkness swallowed him whole. Lyra screamed, her voice echoing across the valley. Her power exploded. The moon itself seemed to shatter, light raining down in waves of red and silver. The devourer shrieked, disintegrating into ash, and with it, half the battlefield vanished into silence. When the light faded, she was alone. Smoke drifted through the ruins. Bodies lay still. The blood moon dimmed to grey, and in the center of it all, Damien's sword lay buried in the earth, its edge still glowing faintly. Lyra fell to her knees beside it, her tears sizzling against the blade. You can't be gone, she whispered. You promised me the dawn. But only the wind answered. When the first light of morning touched the cursed lands, the fighting stopped. The survivors, wolf and vampire alike, stared at the stillness that followed. Lyra stood atop the hill, the bloodlight flickering weakly in her eyes. Her gown was torn, her hands stained in both colors. The war had ended, but not in victory, in silence. And as she turned toward the rising sun, she felt it. A faint heartbeat, far away, not hers, not dead. Damien's, somewhere beyond the veil of the living. Lyra lifted her head, her voice quiet but certain. I'm coming for you. The blood moon faded, leaving only dawn, pale, trembling and full of unfinished promises. And so began the next chapter of legend. The dawn that followed the blood war was not peace. It was silence. A silence too heavy for victory, too sacred for grief. The battlefield lay in ruins, ash, blood and smoke blanketing what once was forest and stone. And in the midst of it all, Lyra stood alone, the wind pulling at her silver-streaked hair, her torn gown fluttering like a dying flame. Her eyes, still half moon, half blood, stared at the sword buried in the soil before her. Damien's sword. The weapon that had once sung with life, now sat still, its glow fading. But Lyra felt it, deep inside her chest, that faint, impossible rhythm. A heartbeat not her own, his. Night fell again, unnaturally fast. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the moon rose, burning red as if it had never left. The blood moon. The last one. Lyra lifted her gaze, her pulse sinking with its light. She felt the curse stir once more, the ancient bond between life and death, love and ruin, tightening around her like a noose. The devourer was gone, but its remnants still lingered, whispering through the air. The curse cannot end. It only trades hearts. She clenched her fists, her nails biting into her palms. Then it can take mine. The voice of the Queen of Thorns, soft, distant, echoed from the ruins around her. Be careful what you offer, child of blood and moon. Magic always keeps its bargains. Lyra turned toward the broken throne, her eyes fierce. Then so will I. She stepped forward, standing where the blood of both worlds had mixed. Her power flared, silver and crimson spiraling upward like twin comets. The wind screamed, the earth split, and from the light Damien appeared. He looked the same, and yet not. His body shimmered faintly, caught between realms, his skin pale as starlight. His eyes glowed a deep, aching red. Lyra froze, unable to breathe. Damien. He smiled faintly, that same calm warmth that had once disarmed her fury. You shouldn't have called me back. Tears slipped down her cheeks. You think I'd let death have you? He shook his head. The curse demanded a life. I gave it mine. And I'm taking it back, she whispered fiercely. He reached out, but his fingers passed through hers. A ghostly touch, cold as winter air. Lyra, he said softly, you can't. I'm not meant to stay. Her voice broke. Then neither am I. For a moment, silence held them. The kind of silence that only exists between souls bound by something greater than time. Then Lyra stepped closer, pressing her hand to his chest, though her palm met only light. I can still feel your heartbeat, she said. It's inside me. Damien's eyes softened. Then let it be enough. But Lyra shook her head. Enough was never what we were. The moon above blazed brighter, bleeding into the clouds. From the horizon, armies stirred once more, vampires on one side, wolves on the other, silent, broken, watching the two who had doomed and saved them all. Lyra turned toward them, her voice carried like thunder. No more war, no more blood for power that was never ours to hold. She raised her arms, her energy flaring so brightly the night itself seemed to kneel before her. Silver and crimson light merged into one pure hue, pale gold, the color of dawn. Damien's eyes widened. Lyra, what are you doing? Ending it, she said. Once and for all. The power that flowed through her veins surged outward, binding her spirit to his. Chains of light wrapped around them both, half fire, half moonlight, and the air trembled with the force of creation reborn. The ghostly figure of the Queen of Thorns appeared in the sky above them, her voice echoing through the battlefield. To break the curse, one must give not a heart, but a soul. To love beyond death is to rewrite the law of blood. Lyra turned to Damien. I choose us, she said. Before he could stop her, she pulled him into a kiss, deep, desperate, defiant. Their light merged completely, the line between life and death dissolving. The curse screamed, a sound like the shattering of worlds. The armies fell to their knees as the blood moon blazed one final time, then cracked apart. The sky bled red, then turned silver. The thorns of the cursed lands withered. The ashes of the dead began to glow, not with decay but renewal. When the light faded, Lyra and Damien stood together once more, both breathing, both alive, their eyes reflecting the same strange glow, half silver, half crimson. Her voice trembled. We broke it. Damien smiled faintly, brushing a lock of hair from her face. No, my love. We became it. He looked around at the stunned faces, wolves and vampires watching side by side. They'll never understand. Lyra took his hand, interlacing her fingers with his. They don't have to. We'll show them. Above them, the last trace of the blood moon dissolved into silver dawn, and for the first time in centuries, the two realms stood in silence, not from fear, but awe. Years passed, or perhaps moments. Time no longer obeyed them. Where the cursed lands once lay, a new kingdom rose, one built on unity, guarded by blood and moon alike. At its heart stood a throne of intertwined silver and crimson, empty yet eternal. Bards sang of the day the war ended. Children of both races grew under one sky, and every blood moon since burned softer, touched not with wrath, but remembrance. They called it the era of the bride. But legends whispered a deeper truth, that somewhere beyond the veil of sight, two immortal souls still wandered the night together, not as vampire, not as wolf, but as something new. In a quiet valley, bathed in silver light, beneath trees that never die, Lyra and Damien stood hand in hand. The world around them had changed, yet their love felt untouched, suspended in eternity. Lyra leaned against him, her voice a whisper. "Do you think they'll remember us?" Damien smiled. "They already do. Every child born of both bloods is proof." She closed her eyes. "Then we did it." He kissed her forehead. "We did more than end a curse. We began forever." The wind stirred the petals of blood and moonlight around their feet, and as they turned to face the endless horizon, their heartbeats, once separate, merged into one rhythm, eternal and whole. The stars dimmed. The moon smiled. And from that moment on, the world knew their story as a vow written not in stone, but in soul. They say every war ends with silence, but sometimes that silence breathes. Once two worlds divided by blood and moonlight believed peace was a myth, until a werewolf princess and a vampire prince defied the gods themselves. Their story began beneath a cursed sky, with a treaty sealed by a kiss that wasn't meant for love. It grew in shadow and fire, through betrayal and sacrifice, through the ache of two hearts that refused to die, even when fate demanded it. When the blood moon rose for the last time, the world watched them fall, only to see them rise again. Together, they broke the oldest curse ever written, not by power, but by love strong enough to tear through heaven and hell alike. Now each dawn carries a trace of their vow, every heartbeat that bridges difference, every soul that dares to love beyond boundaries, is their legacy. No tomb bears their names, no throne remembers their reign. But when the wind howls over the mountains, when the night glows faintly red before the dawn, that's when their story returns, not as tragedy, not as legend, but as truth. For somewhere, in a realm where blood and moonlight meet, two eternal lovers still dance beneath the stars, their hearts one, their vow unbroken, forever whispered through time as the vampire's bride. If you felt the heartbeat of this story, remember to follow for more tales born under the blood moon.